All right, folks, I think we're ready to get rolling. Hello, my name is Brian Anderson. I'm a solutions architect for Eagle Technologies. On the presentation with me today, I've got Ken Ray, sales engineer for HPE and Nimble Storage. You want to say hi, Ken?
Hello, good morning. Glad to be here, Brian.
Excellent. So looks like we got a pretty nice spread today of folks that own Nimble Storage and folks that don't yet own Nimble Storage, which is great for our agenda. So we're going to start out with just a couple of slides on who Eagle is. I always joke that I'm contractually obligated to do that portion. We'll move through that pretty fast, and then we'll get into Ken's presentation. And Ken's presentation is kind of broken into two parts, in my opinion. First, we're going to do kind of a flyover of what Nimble is and what's made it so compelling, and to be blunt, why HPE wanted it. And that I still think is going to be interesting to folks that own Nimble. And then we're going to get into really more of a platform update, what's coming out with the new models and some new software features and capabilities. So feel free to ask questions throughout using the Q&A feature of the webinar of Zoom. And while Ken's talking, I'll kind of be the MC. It'll be my job to interrupt him and ask questions, and I'll probably save up a couple for the end as well. So let's get to it. So Eagle Technologies, we've been around for a while. It was actually, Eagle was started on a college campus way back in '81, right when the tech boom started. The original three coders are the owners of the company today. And of course, for about a quarter century, we've been doing what we do now. I always like to joke how old we are, partially because it makes the owners feel old. But you know, Eagle Technologies was around before cell phones and GPS, if you can imagine that. The space shuttle came out the same year, and dog years we're 260 years old, and we still haven't quite outlasted Java. But I know we're going to make it, so I can't wait for that. For those that haven't worked with Eagle, we really focus on core data center infrastructure. That's what we've been doing for a quarter century. So we have a lot of engineering talent, and we're really focused on servers, networking, storage, and compute. A really big part of our business as it relates to that is DR and business continuity, right? So not only do we want to give that data adequate performance or store it appropriately, but we want to make sure that we can bring it online and back it up in an appropriate fashion as well. For years now, we've also built out managed services, so we can actually help with some of your backup responsibilities, or perhaps even take those responsibilities over and let you focus on other things that are probably more important and interesting. More than ever, we're seeing people struggle with just the glutton of data they have in their data centers. How do they make sure nothing's sensitive? How do they ensure compliance, analytics, archive, which more and more may even mean putting that in a really cold location like tape or out in the public cloud space. So we're really good at helping folks with that. And then finally, more and more data and responsibility and applications are moving out to the edge. So we help more and more folks with wireless and access, and then of course compliance and backup as it relates to that. And if you can't talk cloud and software as a service options and capabilities, you really shouldn't be in the game anymore. So we help folks make good decisions about when data should move out to the public cloud space, and then of course how you can protect and perhaps even apply analytics or governance on that data. And then if you look over on the left, you can see how our logo has evolved. I always find that interesting. The first two remind me of a pretzel brand. If you guys, next time you're in a shopping mart, you might see it and think of us. And then of course, we've evolved to Eagle Technologies. So I just got a couple more slides. So why would you work with Eagle? Well, as I mentioned, we're an integrator or a value-added reseller. And quite simply, if we aren't adding value, we shouldn't be part of the process, right? So one thing that we take really seriously at Eagle, it's another part of my job, is vetting new technologies, finding out what we think is best of breed or what is the best fit for customers to solve certain problems. And then we go deep on those products. We make sure that we can present them, we can size them, we can install them, right, that we can have this cradle to grave mentality. About 2/3 of our staff is actually post-sales engineering and support. If you add in the pre-sales engineering guys like me, we're about 3/4 engineering and support at Eagle. So we really do take this seriously, and I think we do a good job. The other thing that we're seeing more and more is, as we talk about infrastructure with folks, we see that there's a lot more influence coming down from CIOs and CFOs about how we should be solving some of these problems. What I mean by that is if you get high enough in your organization, they just see all this stuff as plumbing. They really don't even want to talk about the zeros and ones, right? What they care about is what I've got on the screen here. How much does it cost? Is it going to mitigate risk? Is it going to make us more agile? Is it really helping us meet our business goals? So if you are the C-level guy that's thinking like that, just know that we've got the engineering chops to deliver infrastructure, but that we have these goals in mind. If you're an infrastructure guy, know that we can help you build really solid solutions, and then we can help you speak to your upper management in a way that lets them understand the value in what you're trying to do. So my last slide, I just wanted to focus on our relationship with Nimble and ultimately HPE. We've been a partner with Nimble for, I think, 8 years now. We were the first folks in the Midwest to actually purchase a Nimble array. So we've been all in for a long time. We had their highest partner status. We always attended yearly EBCs with the Nimble founders, and now we go have yearly EBCs with the HPE Executive Council. I mentioned that we invested heavily early on. All of our managed services runs off of Nimble. All of our tier 1 infrastructure for our own business runs off of Nimble. And of course, because of that investment and success, we've got over 300 active storage arrays right now. So nice lead into Ken. I've worked with Ken a long time. I've had a lot of meetings with Ken. He's one of my favorite sales engineers over at Nimble. I don't know many people that know the product as well as he does. So you're more than welcome to play Stump the Chump. I'll collect those questions and we'll see if we can stump Ken. He'll probably slither around the question anyways because he's so good, right, Ken?
Yeah.
All right, Ken, take it away.
Okay, so I'm Kenneth Ray. I'm a sales engineer with Hewlett Packard Enterprise. I came to Hewlett Packard Enterprise by way of the Nimble Storage acquisition. The Nimble Storage acquisition actually took place a little over a year ago now. So time has flown since then, and we've got a lot of new things to talk about in the Nimble Storage space. But before we get into that, I'd like to talk a little bit about the reasons we believe that Hewlett Packard Enterprise selected Nimble Storage for acquisition versus some of the other storage players that were out in the market and available for acquisition. One of the reasons we like to point out is our Net Promoter Score. If you're not familiar with the Net Promoter Score, what that is that's a third-party organization that conducts a survey of a company's customer base and the satisfaction that those customers have with that company's support organization and products. And with the Net Promoter Score of 85, it happens to be the highest Net Promoter Score in the storage industry. And it's really indicative of really getting world-class support from Nimble Storage. And you can rest assured that if any problems were to happen in your environment, support's going to be there to have your back and assist you at any point. Another key reason I like to think that Hewlett Packard Enterprise acquired Nimble Storage is that we've been a leader in Gartner's research Magic Quadrant for general purpose storage. If you're familiar with Gartner research, a lot of large organizations and enterprises leverage the research that they conduct to kind of look and see which manufacturers and organizations they want to conduct business with. And as a leader for the last 2.5 years in the general purpose storage, we were the first to move into that quadrant in over 20 years. And at that point in time, we were the only $9 billion company in the leader quadrant. So we've got a lot of tight integrations and alliances with a lot of the key players and manufacturers across the industries, whether it's VMware, Microsoft, or Veeam. You'll see that there are really tight partnerships and really tight integrations that you can leverage within your infrastructure. So kind of level setting and letting everyone know some of the key differentiators that is Nimble Storage. One of the things I like to talk about is the timeless piece. And what I mean by that is we really are future-proofing your investment. We've always had all-inclusive licensing. So any of the capabilities and features we ever talk about are always included. And when we come out with new feature functionality, it's a firmware upgrade and you get that capability. We've got guaranteed availability. That's part of the timeless as well. And the guaranteed availability is 6 nines. When you purchase an HPE Nimble Storage Array, you get a 6 nines guarantee today. And we've actually been measuring 6 nines across our entire install base of over 25,000 plus arrays deployed around the globe. Cloud ready. What that means is that our Nimble storages that you have on-premise in your infrastructure are able to replicate to the Nimble cloud seamlessly. It's as easy as replicating from one on-premise array to another at a DR location. You can also replicate to the cloud. So all of the Nimble storage arrays are cloud ready. Predictive. This is really the key right here. We bring AI, artificial intelligence, to the data center. We do this through a product we refer to as HPE InfoSight. And HPE InfoSight predicts and prevents problems across the entire infrastructure. And we do this by gathering tons of telemetry data about how customers are using our storage and how things are performing, as well as the health and wellness around their infrastructure. We've developed one architecture for on-premises and cloud. So on-premise, we have the primary flash array. It's an all-flash array, but it's got the exact same capabilities, interoperability as the hybrid flash. And our hybrid flash is really kind of where we started at. Back in 2010, when we first shipped our product, we were shipping hybrid flash arrays. And these arrays really competed with a lot of all-flash arrays. And we've got customers that leverage these arrays as their primary production storage, but also they'll use it maybe in a DR scenario where an all-flash might be their product of choice for production. And from a multi-cloud storage standpoint, I mentioned that we can replicate seamlessly from either of these platforms directly to the Nimble Cloud. And all of the feature functionalities that we have with our on-premise array also are capable within our cloud volumes. The benefit with the cloud volume being multi-cloud is that you can also swing these Nimble Cloud volumes and attach them to a Microsoft Azure compute instance or an Amazon AWS compute instance. So there's no lock-in from a cloud standpoint. Getting to the InfoSight piece. So we've been able to collect this data since 2010 when we first started shipping our products, and we've done it ever since. And we've got a massive amount of data that's been quite historical, but it's also been cross-stack, meaning we're gathering information from the VMs down through the network into the storage. And we put a lot of hooks, basically a hook into every module of code into the file system on our Nimble storage array. This allows us to ensure that we can monitor every facet of what's going on in your environment and be able to provide really quick return on getting things fixed. And we do this because we're gathering this information from those 25,000 arrays, and we're leveraging some global learning and some machine learning to really predict and prevent problems from happening. So our vision, as we collect all of this data from our customers' environments, from their VMware stack down through the networking and into the storage array, our goal is really to be able to create a self-managing environment, essentially an autonomous data center that manages itself, and really frees up IT from the day-to-day hassles of infrastructure. But we also want it to be able to do self-healing. We want it to predict and prevent problems, which we're already doing, but we also want it to be able to automatically resolve issues and essentially put an end to disruptions. We want it to self-optimize. We want to ensure that the environment itself is balancing performance and cost and resources. And we want to be able to do this across the entire infrastructure stack. And being part of HPE is what's going to allow us to realize that. Our InfoSight product and capabilities have all been steered really around the Nimble storage. But now as part of HPE, we can kind of spread that to the other storage platforms that HPE offer, but also into the servers and the networking that HPE offer as well, giving a more complete solution and really kind of tying in the autonomous data center for other products that HPE has.
Hey, Ken, not to interrupt you, but I just did. I just wanted to point out that this sounds like really great marketing, but I've actually seen all this happening. It's been a year, and we've seen an incredible push internally at HPE to take advantage of InfoSight and to start getting more components and products, quite literally, to feed into that engine. So this is really a big push for HPE. I just wanted to reiterate that.
Gotcha. Thank you. So we'll go ahead and jump on to kind of a lot of the things that we're building here in regards to AI for the data center and the approach that we've got. So we've been collecting this data for, since the inception of Nimble Storage. And every second for almost a decade now, we've collected millions of sensors from our entire install base. And these are thousands of embedded sensors built into every storage system. And we're pulling it from VMware for full stack visibility, so we can see things about how the compute is working, how the network, and of course, how the underlying storage is working. But we're not really analyzing this in isolation. Because all of this data is sent to the cloud, we're actually able to do some advanced machine learning against all of this information that we're gathering from our customers. And we've got a recommendation engine that's fed with this data, along with some data scientists that actually sit in our support organization that actually feed models into this recommendation engine, as well as the data that's coming from our customers. And the goal really is to basically create predictive support automation. So with Nimble Storage having a net promoter score of 85, which is, like I mentioned, indicative of world-class support, the reason we're able to do that is because we're gathering all of this information from the customers' infrastructure into the cloud, leveraging the analytics engine, the global learning, and the recommendation engine, so that our support is predictive. So most of the time, support will be calling our customer base, or InfoSight will be alerting you via email and alerts what's going on in your environment. And from an AI-driven management standpoint, you can actually get recommendations on changes that you need to make in your environment. And you can actually, within the InfoSight product, run an AI-driven report that will review how your environment's performing and actually make recommendations on the fly about adjustments that you can make. Our goal with this is today we're making those recommendations, but in the future, we want it to be self-driving. We want it to not only recognize the issues that are in your environment, but also be able to act and actually enhance how things are working and performing in your environment, and just essentially make you aware of the changes and modifications that's taking place. Now, this is kind of vision and our steps to get there. Today, we're predicting and preventing problems. We're now also making recommendations. Our future goal is to make it self-driving, if you will. And the real benefit by collecting all of this information and learning from our install base is we want to be able to see a problem once and then inoculate all of our other customers and prevent that problem from happening from anyone else. And again, this doesn't matter if it's host, VM, network inter issues. Maybe there's some interoperability issues with firmwares between the switches, between the storage, or maybe even your host's configuration. We want to be able to pick up on all of the things that can cause outages or delays in your environment. And if we see a problem anywhere else across our entire install base, we want to try to make sure that you don't have that same problem. So our environment essentially gets smarter, our arrays get smarter just by having them in the field longer. So the benefit to the customer of us gathering this information is, like I mentioned before, support you actually like. A lot of times customers want to try to solve the problem first and will sometimes wait a good while before they contact their vendor support organization. And a lot of time that's because they don't want to go through a series of questions to essentially prove they've got a problem. And sometimes they'll actually be asked, can we try to replicate the problem? Well, of course, no one wants to do that in their environment. So but by us collecting all of this data, you never have to send us the logs. You never have to replicate the problem. And then your motives are never questioned because we see exactly what's going on in your environment. Since we've got all of this automated and these tickets are automatically opened by InfoSight for support, it's solving 86% of your problems automatically. And it allows us on the back end to only have level 3 technical support engineers because InfoSight essentially automates out the requirement to have the level 1, level 2. So when you do talk to someone in support, you're guaranteed that you're talking to someone that's going to take your problem from cradle to grave. They're going to own it. And these are level 3 engineers. Effortless management, 79% lower storage operational expenses. What does that mean? Well, we have been basically radically simple to manage and consume. Whether you're sizing an array to fit in a particular environment for a project, whether you're installing it, whether you need to add more storage, or the day-to-day management associated with it is radically simple. This is something that I believe that customers of Nimble today probably easily recognize, because it's just much easier to manage than traditional storage. And then I mentioned that it's self-improving infrastructure. Guaranteed availability of 6 nines. We've got a guarantee when you purchase Nimble storage array that comes with the array of 6 nines availability. We're measured 6 nines across the entire install base, and the arrays and the infrastructure for our customers is constantly self-improving. So that's kind of, a high-level overview of what Nimble Storage is about, why we believe Hewlett-Packard Enterprise acquired Nimble Storage versus some of the other manufacturers in the space, and kind of what our forte is really simplicity and the ability to have your environment managed with InfoSight automatically is essentially kind of like having a third-party IT organization monitor your infrastructure with you. And all you have to do in order to get these capabilities and get this reporting functionality is essentially install the Nimble storage, place data on it, and the rest kind of takes care of itself. So, next generation HPE Nimble storage products. So, some of the new announcements that we've had, a brief overview. One of the key things is when it comes to storage today, and when customers are looking at all flash, there's a lot of terms in regards to capacity that are thrown around. One of them is raw capacity, usable capacity, effective capacity. How do I know how much data I'm actually going to be able to place on an array after space-saving mechanisms such as compression and deduplication? Well, with us, you can buy with confidence because we can guarantee that our all-flash array is going to have more effective capacity per raw capacity than our competitors. So what does that mean? So to take an easy number here, if a customer is looking at 100 terabytes raw and they look at one of our competitors, on average, we see that starting capacity, the usable capacity, is about 55 to 60%. So if you've got 100 terabyte raw, that normally equates to roughly 60 terabyte usable. And then after that, you factor in compression and deduplication ratios. Well, with Nimble storage, we know that we're starting from a much higher usable capacity, on average about 72%. So we're starting at 72 terabytes of usable capacity versus our competitors starting at a much less starting capacity. We'll dive into that in just a moment. On the future-proofing piece of the equation, storage class memory and NVMe ready. All of our array platforms are ready for NVMe. When dual-port NVMe drives are made available and kind of more prevalent in the marketplace, we're going to be able to take advantage of those. And the Nimble storage products are already wired, plumbed, and configured to leverage that technology. The same goes for storage class memory. So when capabilities from Optane 3D XPoint are available, we can take advantage of them. And we'll be able to use them kind of the same way we did with our hybrid platform, where our underlying storage media was hard drives and the cache to speed up reads was SSD. Well, now even our all-flash arrays could essentially be hybrid because we can leverage storage class memory to be that really fast read cache and the SSDs be the primary storage media.
Yeah, Ken, that's just another really important point that I just wanted to kind of reinforce is, anyone that owned a Nimble array 5 years ago, back when hybrids were just starting to come out, they recognized that with your caching algorithms, they could take a tiny amount of flash, emulate an all-flash array, and to be honest, just kick butt on the competitors, right? So you guys are going to reinvent yourselves when storage class memory comes out and be able to do the same thing, right? So suddenly flash is going to be slow, and this memory-like performing storage is going to be the kick butt storage medium, right? So it's going to be really interesting to see that come out and how much we see an increase in performance on your Nimble storage arrays.
Absolutely, and we feel uniquely positioned to be able to take advantage of that because of our hybrid roots. One other key thing to kind of point out here from an announcement overview is that all of our products offer inline always on dedupe. And a lot of times on the hybrid arrays, that's a much more challenging thing to be able to provide our customers. But with the new platform, always on dedupe, now our all flash arrays and our hybrid arrays are in complete parity. They're interoperable. They can replicate to one another. They've got the exact same data services. The only difference being one's all flash and one has some spinning disks with the SSD in it. So on that store more guarantee, just to kind of expand on it a little bit, we're going to match the additional capacity if we're proven wrong. We could create this guarantee and make this guarantee because we know that we're going to be starting from a raw to effective. We're going to be starting with a higher usable capacity than anyone else. So when you start getting the benefits of deduplication and compression on the top, you're going to have a much more, larger effective capacity. Here's kind of why we can make this guarantee. So today, this right here shows the raw hardware, the raw flash that's in the array. And normally what percentage is usable and what percentage is overhead for the operating system of the array, any RAID, any sparing, that type of thing. And with us, we've got a bit of an advantage because of the amount of usable capacity that we're starting with. We've just got a much lower overhead. I mentioned that on average, our arrays are 72% usable of the total raw capacity. Our competitors are normally in the 55 to 60%. So we're starting at a much higher usable capacity. And when you factor in the deduplication, compression, and the zero block elimination, you can see that the effective capacity for application data, kind of where our competitors come in, and then because of our higher usable capacity, the difference that we bring to the table. So it's quite easy for us to really make the guarantee that you're going to get more effective capacity. And when you're looking at flash arrays, for example, even though the price has come down, on a cost per gigabyte, they're still a little more costly, of course, than the hybrid arrays per gigabyte. And being able to get as much effective capacity and use out of that costlier resources is a true benefit and really is kind of leveling things out between the hybrid and the all flash. So for those that maybe have hybrid today, I'd say definitely take a look at the all flash. And those that are looking at making a change in their environment, the all flash is obviously beneficial from a performance standpoint, but now from an effective capacity standpoint, you're going to really be able to put a lot of data on there. So we mentioned that the arrays are storage class memory and NVMe ready today. They are Plum. It's part of our timeless program, our commitment to ensure that our arrays are future-proofed so that when these new technologies are more prevalent, you're able to take advantage of them day one. This kind of touches on what Brian stated a moment ago, which is the performance benefits. And this really kind of shows just a bit of a chart showing where SAS and flash SSD from a performance where it kind of sits on the line. And then when you factor in NVMe as the protocol to the flash, the benefits that it gives are just a little bit. There's not a big impact to performance. But when you couple that NVMe with storage class memory, that's where the big performance gains are going to come into play. That's where leveraging someone like a Nimble Storage with a heritage in hybrid capabilities, when we're hybrid SSD and hybrid with storage class memory, the performance that customers are going to get is going to be 10x what we're talking about with NVMe alone.
And, from my perspective at Eagle, the reason I'm excited about that is there's not many people out there that need to do 250,000 IOPS, but if you can do 10 more things in the same amount of time, your latency is going to be significantly reduced, right? It's all related. So we're going to see a lot of SQL-like applications benefit from this greatly.
Definitely. So our all flash arrays, it's high performance for primary workloads, all of the Nimble capabilities that we've always had, from scale out and scale up, the ability for us to change out the processors from one model to a model that's got more CPU and more memory, and essentially can make our arrays faster, because we are essentially riding Intel's release cycle, because our arrays are limited in performance by the CPU. Doesn't matter how many SSDs in there. If you add more SSDs, it's not going to make the array any faster. Our arrays get faster when they have more CPU and more memory. And we can also scale out. So for those customers that would like to be able to really get more capacity and even greater performance, our arrays can be clustered out as they've always been able to do. And we can scale them out for a couple of different reasons. Maybe they need that performance and they want the data striped across up to 4 arrays, but maybe they've got an all-flash array and a hybrid array, and they'd like to group them so they've got one management user interface, and they can just provision storage for their environment and just specify if they want it to come from the pool of all-flash or the pool of hybrid. Guaranteed 6 nines of availability. This is actually across every platform that we've got, on-premise, cloud as well. And one benefit of us, having our entry-level models is that we can actually get a really small footprint, 6 terabytes of raw capacity. So some of the smaller organizations can actually get in and take advantage of all that Nimble Storage brings, whether it's InfoSight and the capabilities that we bring. A lot of times, some of the manufacturers have a really high capacity to kind of get into their models. With us, you can start as small as 6 terabytes raw, and then grow that array and be as large and as powerful as any of the other models that we have, because you can upgrade it in place non-disruptively from a capacity and from a performance standpoint. From a best price to performance, we've got our AF40, our AF60. This is delivering 220% better price performance than our previous arrays. And it's because we're taking advantage of Intel Skylake processors. We've got more cores in there. I mentioned already that our arrays are limited by CPU. We have more cores. As new processors come out with faster, more CPU cores, our arrays will get faster.
And Ken, sorry to interrupt you again. I just wanted to add that, once again, that sounds like great marketing, but at Eagle, we've already been quoting those mid-range all-flash arrays, and they have 3 times the performance of your previous gen, and they are coming in at the same price, if not a little bit less. So that's been exciting too.
Yeah, the AF40 there, or the 40 model, whether it's the AF or the HF, is really a powerhouse array, offering, as you'll see here in a moment, of the family lineup. You can see the capacities that they bring as well as the performance. The AF80, that is really geared towards extremely high performance, someone that needs enormous amounts of effective capacity, as you can see there, up to 4 petabytes, and a performance that's 65% higher than our last high-end model. So very performant array. And here is the family right here. There's really 4 models. It's the AF20, the AF40, the AF60, and the AF80. As you can see down towards the bottom, we have an AF20Q. That's the one where we're able to start at the small 6 terabytes of raw capacity and grow it from there, because it can still go to an AF40. We can add additional capacity to it. You can grow it as needed. The Q stands for quarter populated. What I mean by that is, in that head shelf that you're looking at right there on the left, it can actually hold 48 solid state drives in that shelf. And quarter populated means we've populated 12 of those 48 bays, and then you can grow them another 12 or 36, up to 36 for that head shelf. The AF20 and the AF20Q, because they've got the exact same processors, have the exact same performance capabilities. So by getting into the Q, all that designates is that you're starting at a smaller capacity footprint is all. The AF40, you can see this is the one that I think is really a good powerhouse and kind of best price to performance right here. You're looking at 140,000 IOPS, up to 682 terabytes of effective capacity. We can meet a large number of customers from a performance and a capacity standpoint. And then on the models up above, you can see the performance just scales 250 to 400,000 IOPS, up to 4 petabytes on the AF80. And just as a reminder, on all our models, you can start at an AF20 today. Year 5, maybe you've grown, and you can actually just change out the controllers and update to whatever the latest is. If the AF60 is around, in 5 years, you can upgrade to that one. But maybe we've got the AF70 then, and you can actually upgrade. You're on the new models at that point. You can have another 5-7 years of support on that alone. So,
and Ken, I always like to point out that, your competitors, when they list IOPS numbers, there's usually the assumption that you've loaded this thing up with a ton of flash drives, and that's really when the controller's bottleneck. I'm sure you've been through this conversation too. And what's unique here is that your systems don't have to be fully loaded. Your bottleneck is at the processor. There's always a bottleneck, but because of where you guys moved it, these things day one, half populated, they're going to be belching out 140,000 IOPS, for instance, on that AF40.
Absolutely. Absolutely. These are, you nailed it. These numbers here aren't us putting in a lot of SSD because it's not going to increase the performance. It's not something that's it's not something that's unique and wouldn't be in your environment. These IOPS, these configurations, these capabilities are what you would be able to see once you install it and set it up in your environment. Our adaptive flash arrays, these are the hybrid arrays. These are the ones that can still be used for your other primary workloads. We have a ton of customers that use this as their main storage, their main workload or workhorse for their mainstream applications in their environments. And they've got the exact same capabilities with the scale up, the scale out. And now with all of them having inline variable dedupe, then they've exactly got the same capabilities as the all flash. The only difference, aside from the obvious fact being that they've got spinning disk and SSD and the other ones have all flash, the thing is that these arrays are still limited by the CPU as well. So you can actually go up and model and get more performance without having to add additional storage capacity, because maybe you just don't need additional capacity, but maybe year 3, year 4, you've hit the CPU ceiling and you'd like to be able to upgrade the array and get more performance. It's a benefit to us being bottlenecked at the CPU is it's easy to do that non-disruptively. But we can also leverage this hybrid flash array as a backup unit. We can use it for dev test. You can place your dev test on here and use it as a backup target. We offer, inline dedupe and compression on here, of course. So when you're leveraging it as a backup target, you're going to get really high deduplication benefits because of the duplicity of backup data, but you're going to be able to spin those VMs up off of that backup directly on this array because this is a high performance array, even though it's your backup target. So when you start to use backup software capabilities like instant restore, or maybe some functionality that actually tests and validates that your backups are working, a lot of times you simply can't do that on a backup target that's not as performant because it just can't handle the load in order to facilitate that. With our adaptive flash arrays, you can run production workloads on this, so you can most certainly do a lot of the instant recovery, spin up VMs and validate that your backups are fine. And you can use this as a replication target from an all flash array as well. So, we see this as the most efficient hybrid array in the marketplace. Always on dedupe available, always on compression available, encryption, we haven't talked about that. Everything that we do in regards to encryption, compression, and deduplication is in line on every model. So you can leverage it for primary workloads where cost-efficient flash performance is important, and you want to really be able to get a lower cost, but be able to provide extreme performance for some of your applications. But again, for the secondary workloads, we can be a backup, we can be a DR. For a backup standpoint, you just create a volume, specify that you're going to leverage it for your backups, and it's going to handle all of the sequential ingest accordingly, and then provide those deduplication benefits. From a capacity and getting started standpoint, we started 11 terabytes raw, And here we've got another model that's similar to the AF20, and it's the HF20H, and the H in this particular case stands for half populated. This allows us to get down to 11 terabytes of raw capacity, again, so we can get into some of these smaller businesses and companies that would really like to benefit from InfoSight, as an example, our integration with VMware, or maybe the integrations with Microsoft. If they would like to take advantage of those integrations, but maybe they're a smaller footprint and we couldn't get down to them, then those customers might not be able to fit in. But being able to get down to 11 terabyte allows us to expand our reach to some of those smaller customers and or maybe some remote offices and branch offices. But we've also got the ability, even in that HF20 model, is to scale deep. We see a lot of customers today that's capturing surveillance video, as an example, and they need a lot of capacity, a ton of dense storage, but they don't really need necessarily a lot of high performance. They don't need the deduplication capabilities. So we've also got an HF20C, and the C essentially denotes that this array is only going to be doing compression. That way, these customers can get up to 2 petabytes of effective capacity that they can store, as an example, these videos on, and not necessarily need to have a higher end model because they're not going to be combing through the videos so much. The HF40, I mentioned before, the 40 line, whether it's the AF and the HF, this is really the best price performance getter right here. High IOP capability, high throughput. The capacities on both the AF and the HF, as you'll see, are very dense, and we can, of course, scale these out even greater. And then when you jump into the HF60, up to 65% higher performance than our last model. And again, the only thing that's changed is we've got the latest Intel CPUs with faster, more cores. Here's the adaptive flash family lineup. I mentioned that we've got the HF20H, so we can start at 11 terabytes, but you can see that you can scale to 821 terabytes of effective capacity. And the same IOPS are capable in the HF20H, the 20, and the 20C, which is the compression-only array, because they've got the same controllers in there. The H allows us to just start at a smaller footprint, and you can scale it up as well. We've got the HF40. That's really, from a performance standpoint, we can handle a very large number of customer infrastructures because of the performance and the scalability. And then the HF60, high-end, up to 5 petabytes of effective capacity, 250,000 IOPS. A workhorse that you could put in probably just about any environment. And again, like Brian mentioned before, these aren't numbers that have been, array configured so that these numbers look gleamed and glorious. They're really a real world example of what the performance capabilities are in the array.
Yeah, and Ken, adding to that point, as a partner, when I go into InfoSight, I can take somebody's read-write ratios and their block sizes and their capacities and what kind of workloads they are, and I can use all of that InfoSight data, and I can tell you specifically at what percentage your controllers are going to be running at peak I/O. So I really like InfoSight from a sizing perspective because I can give customers a lot of confidence that they're going to be great running out of the gate, right, and that they're going to be good at year 3. And then the other thing I would add is you'll notice that these hybrid arrays, their controllers have the exact same maximum IOPS as the all-flash arrays. And once again, that's because these guys are bottlenecked at the controllers. And really, it's a dollar per IO decision and how much consistent latency you want as it pertains to whether or not you go with the all-flash or the hybrid arrays. But it's a really flexible platform, really consistent latencies in top-end I/O, and I think that's one of the things as a partner that I've always liked about Nimble is how consistent it performs and how great the support is. It just breeds happy customers.
That's a good point, pointing out the IOP capabilities of the HF and the AF. You can see, because we are limited by the CPU, that the performance capabilities are the same, and really it is $1 per IOP. It's $1 per gigabyte cost, and with us being able to do inline deduplication on both platforms, it's really a win-win. And you really get the ability to take your pick if you want AF or if you want HF in your environment and still have a very high performing